Hi there, it's Allan from Glasgow. I am delighted to be joined this afternoon by Dr. Paul Mills, the Technical Director of Fyne Audio. Today we're coming from Fyne Audio's fabulous new factory in Bells Hill, just outside Glasgow, and we're currently in their demonstration and evaluation room. So, Dr. Mills, thank you very much for taking the time out today to join us.
Well, it's a pleasure to do so.
Good stuff, good stuff. Purpose really of today is a bit of a kind of technical overview of Fyne for our audience. What we'd like to cover is a few of the unique features of the product and some of the design elements that you take into account when designing a loudspeaker.
Indeed.
So, without any further ado, we have a lovely vintage 15 sitting behind us. If we start with the drive unit, so you operate sort of Isoflare technology. What's the principle of Isoflare?
Right. Well, Isoflare is our name and our take on the point source driver. Conventional loudspeakers, they have discrete tweeters, bass mid-range units, which are separated in space on the baffle. Now, that's all well and good when you're optimizing the speaker and listening to it on axis. But when you move off axis, the whole system becomes misaligned. The relative distance between the drivers changes, and that means it's no longer phase coherent. You end up with cancellations in the crossover region and many other problems. The whole point about a point source driver, no pun intended, is that you have the tweeter and the bass drivers being concentric, and there have been several takes on this in the market, some of which have been more successful than others, but the whole idea is to create a point source driver where the sound emanates from one particular space.
So that's effectively the acoustic centre.
The acoustic centre, and in the case of our driver, the Isoflare, it is time aligned in that the unit has to be designed such that the acoustic centres of the bass mid-range driver and the tweeter are in exactly the same place behind the driver. Now, this means that we have a coherent design in terms of the phase response. The harmonic structure of instruments is preserved, both on axis and, more importantly, off axis.
Yeah. It also gives you, I guess, a very wide dispersion.
It does improve dispersion.
The sweet spot, I guess, for the loudspeaker is probably a little bit larger than having a very narrow sweet spot.
Yes, and that gives the speaker very good imaging, particularly when you're sitting off axis. And it integrates energy into the room better.
Okay.
And the other good point about this coherent point source driver is that as you move off axis, the frequency response doesn't change in the crossover region because it's totally time aligned.
Yeah. Okay. You've also got this interesting rim around the cone itself.
Yes.
So what is it how do you term that?
We call that our fine flute surround, in that those little nicks, nodules in it are there for a reason. If you think about a conventional surround, energy travels up the cone and has to be terminated by the surround. Now, it's the same distance from the mouth of the driver to any point on the surround. So any reflections or misterminated energy end up being reflected back down. That can cause resonances and colorations. With the fine flute surround, this means that the non-homogeneous nature of the thing causes the spread of reflections over a wider frequency range. So you don't end up with one particular resonance, you end up with a very gentle and benign nature of
So the energy is spread across a wider frequency range, so
Absolutely.
there's less of an impact on a particular
yes, indeed.
particular resonant frequency. Okay. So that's the drive unit technology. I can take that from you.
Yes, thank you. It's rather heavy.
It's rather heavy indeed. It's a fairly substantial piece of kit.
Beastly things.
Crossover. So first thing is obviously no surface mount on that at all. Discrete components.
Yes.
Reasoning behind.
What we're really getting at here is the majority of crossovers, even on pretty high-end speakers, are done on printed circuit boards. This makes for a really easy manufacture. It's easy to populate. They can be populated by machine, for example. But printed circuit boards have a couple of issues. Firstly, the tracks tend to be quite thin. And if you make them thicker, you end up putting tracks under components, which cause interaction of magnetic fields. You've got no control over the actual quality of the copper. And it's generally, we don't consider it to be the best way of going about things. With a hardwired layout such as this, where you're using the component leads as individual wires between components, you can optimize the layout better, and you can also choose the type of cabling you want to use for optimized performance. In our two least expensive ranges, the 500 E and S, we do make use of printed circuit boards because it's the only way to achieve the results for the price point. But it's very carefully done with regards to layout. But in all the other models, we make use of this hardwired technique, which is it's certainly time-consuming and requires a lot of care and precision in assembly.
I guess also in the design stage, it allows you to evaluate individual components fairly easily.
Yes,
because you can replace components quickly and
absolutely
see what that impact is in the.
Yeah, well, when we actually start out designing a speaker, we have the components hanging out to the back of the speaker.
Yeah, quite. So for those of the audience that aren't aware, a crossover, essentially it's a filter. What does a crossover do?
Well, it splits the signal between the drive units. You only want the high frequencies going to the tweeter and the low frequencies going to the bass mid-range unit or lower bass driver, if you've got one. So you're operating each device within its comfort zone,
range,
the range of frequencies where it operates as predicted.
Okay, and you do something which is quite unusual. You cryogenically treat many of the components in the crossover. So first of all, what is cryogenics, and why would you do it to an electronic component or a cable?
Right, okay. People are familiar with cables being cryogenically treated. You can buy them, but we go several steps further than this. So
by cryogenically treating, what are we doing? We're dropping
We're taking the temperature very slowly down to below 150 degrees, and we're holding
even colder than a Scottish summer.
Well, just a little bit, and we hold it there for around a day, and then slowly bring the assembly back to room temperature.
Okay.
Now, what this does is it releases any stresses in the makeup of the components, such as capacitors. It relaxes them, and it also has an effect on both the wire and, in particular, the solder joints in terms of improving the crystal structure of them.
So is that by taking the energy of vibration out of the component?
It's really by changing the molecular structure of the metallic component, be it solder joints or individual.
And the result of that, from an audio perspective?
Well, we notice that things sound a bit more detailed. It gets rid of any hardness and harshness. Just generally gives a improvement at all frequencies, really.
And what do you put that down to? Just reducing the resistance of the
on a microscopic level, to some degree.
Okay.
Yes. that, and as I mentioned, relaxing the materials
Okay.
from stresses that are built up during the
Okay.
manufacturing process.
Okay. So you'll end up with a smoother presentation then.
Yes, smoother and more detailed. Okay. But the important thing is, we do the whole crossover assembly when it's complete, and no operations are done on it after that. So you really benefit. It's a more sort of holistic approach to cryogenics than is really traditional.
Okay.
The important thing also to note is that, unlike other manufacturers, we actually do this in-house at our own cryogenic facility. Okay. So we don't have the vagaries of other people's
methodology and processes.
Yeah.
Indeed. Okay, so we've covered driving technology, crossovers, cabinet structure. So the vintage, is it a birch ply cabinet?
Yes, it is.
Okay. The reason for using birch ply over MDF or HDF?
It's less homogeneous. Any resonances and things are spread over a wide frequency range. It's denser. Okay. It's better damped.
So is it because it's more predictable in terms of its structure, or do you just know the resonant frequency of the material?
It tends to spread resonances over a wider frequency range. It's more rigid. Okay. And particularly in an enclosure like the vintage you can see behind you, the curved cabinet sides help with the rigidity. Not only that, but they
standing
help,
waves presumably within.
They help with standing waves, so it does help reduce coloration quite considerably.
Okay, and you have this beautifully machined presence control on the front. What does that actually do?
Right, the presence control affects the energy in the 2.5 to 5 kilohertz region. Okay. And it's a kind of idea that came to me from more sort of pro audio world, where presence is known as the region which affects vocals, particularly female vocals, and applying that sort of degree of equalization, plus or minus a couple of dBs in that region, you can effectively set the sound stage. You can have it either closer to you or further away. You can compensate for room effects, and also to some extent personal taste as well. Yeah. It's a bit like focusing the lens on a camera. You know when it's right, because everything just gels in terms of the presentation imaging. Okay.
In the hi-fi world, we've always been kind of told that you shouldn't really use bass and treble controls on an amplifier. It should be as flat as possible. Do you feel the benefits of the presence control outweigh any either distortion or noise or information loss that putting more components in the signal path brings?
The first point is we're dealing with something that's can be quite variable. Everyone's listening room is totally different. Yeah. And secondly, its presence control is not actually in series with the signal path.
Okay.
It's in parallel with the signal path. Okay. Which means that the information going to the tweeter does not pass through it.
Right. Okay.
It's either added to or subtracted to by this parallel network.
Oh, okay.
So there's no actual degradation of the signal involved.
Okay. So it's adding rather than affecting the signal path.
Yes, it's altering the amount of energy in that specific region, as we mentioned.
Okay. Okay. So working our way down the loudspeaker. So we talked about presence control. So these are obviously a ported design, which presumably all of your speakers are.
Yes, indeed.
Ported rather than infinite baffle. Again, a design decision.
It is. There are very few infinite baffle speakers around, and the reason is that to get high efficiency with a reasonable cabinet volume,
you need a big amplifier.
Well, yes, you either need a very big cabinet or a very big amplifier or
Yeah.
both to achieve the low frequency extension out
Okay.
of ports.
So there's obviously inherent issues with a ported cabinet in terms of port noise and various things, and you also offer the bass tracks.
Yes, well, if you think about a rear-mounted port, you can have issues if the speaker's too close to the rear wall.
Yeah.
And with a front-mounted port, it's possible to hear turbulence with a badly designed port.
Yeah.
The best option, really, we feel, is a downwards firing port. Yeah. And to take that principle a bit further, what we did was come up with the idea of a diffuser, which is actually a mathematical trax profile. So it's effectively a cone, but of a very specific mathematical nature.
Okay.
So the plane wave from the port hits this diffuser, and any energy is reflected off at exactly 90 degrees. And this forms a spherical wavefront. So energy is radiated into the room through 360 degrees.
Okay. Right. Okay.
The advantage of that really being that it makes the speaker somewhat less sensitive to
boundaries and
and also we can measure it to the amount of turbulence from the port is significantly reduced.
And is that because of the shape of the?
Yes, you don't get any sort of non-linear airflow.
Whatever. Yeah. Okay.
So that was the first of our patents that we came up with in those days.
It's something that pretty much happens throughout the full range of the.
Yes, it does. We use it on all our speakers. The floor standing models like that, the system is a bit more complicated in that it's a twin chamber cabinet, in that there's a internal partition about 2/3 of the way down, a second chamber, which acts as a baffle and helps reduce standing waves from top to bottom. And this works in conjunction with the trax diffuser and downwards firing port system.
Okay, interesting. Okay. And we can see the kind of idea of the cone reflected in the Supertweeters.
Yes, indeed. It's the same mathematical profile. Again.
So what's the principle of this kind of hypertweeter, supertweeter array? What's the reasoning behind adding that?
The several reasons really. Everyone's familiar with the idea of a supertweeter. Normally they are forwards firing devices. A few examples around, and the problem with them is.
But the argument is that they operate kind of, above. Where does that drop in? About 15 kilohertz?
The crossover point 16K.
So technically, certainly for my hearing at my age, I suspect that's probably beyond my audible range. So
there's more to it than that.
Indeed.
There always is.
There always is.
So the frequency response of that supertweeter is from the 60K, as we mentioned, up to 60,000 kilohertz. There is musical information, a lot of it, above 20 kilohertz, and that's apparent on wide bandwidth material. There's a school of thought that you can't hear that, and conventionally that's correct, but you can perceive it, and there's been a lot of research done to show that there are several organs within the ear which are thought responsible for this ability to perceive ultrasound. But even if you discount that kind of argument, the supertweeter does an awful lot within the audible range. What it does is to improve the phase response at high frequencies. Conventional or speaker or point source speaker like that, they all tend to roll off at some point, 20 kilohertz, 25 kilohertz. That actually creates phase error in the audible frequency band. So it helps compensate for that. Now, the advantage of our supertweeter is that it's positioned at the acoustic centre of the main Isoflare driver, so it becomes phase coherent
and time aligned
with everything else, timeline, as you say. Another aspect to it is even the best loudspeakers become directional at high frequencies, even though it's fair to say the off-axis response of our Isoflare is a lot better behaved than the discrete unit.
Yeah.
So what this does is to essentially improve the dispersion at high frequencies and create a more airy.
So you get less of the kind of beaming effect that you get at super high frequencies.
Yes, that's correct. And that together with the improvement in the phase response creates an effect which those who've heard it will find unmissable. It's something like when you take it away from them, they'll want it back. Yeah. It's kind of the degree of naturalness it sort of adds to music reproduction is quite striking, we find.
Yeah, great. Excellent. Okay. So I think that covers most of the principles of the loudspeaker design. Is there anything else you'd like to add to that?
Yeah, I think it's fair to say that we have quite an array of speakers from the very high end down to the more budget models, and there's a lot of trickle down technology. Our first speaker was the F110, which was a twin cavity nice trax diffuser.
Again, rounded cabinet design.
Yeah. So moving down the range, even down to our budget 500 ENS ranges, the same design ethos is maintained. So even though as you move down the ranges, you don't get necessarily all the features, you get basically most of them. You may not get the cryogenic treatment on the budget models, but you still have the same type of
core
technology, essentially. The Isoflare driver, the Fyne surround. So throughout a whole range, there's a continuity of technology that exists through them all, really.
Great. Okay. That was great. Thank you very much for your time.
It's been a pleasure talking to you, and I just hope this is of interest to our viewers.
Wider audience. Great stuff. Thank you.
Thank you.